Hello, welcome back to Helping Healthcare Scale. I'm your host, Austin Hare, and I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Kana. He is the managing partner for Dental Depot, DFW. Dental Depot is a 45-year-old company with over 40 offices in 5 regions. It's doctor-owned, and it's one of the largest privately held DSOs in the country. And Dr. Kana has been with Dental Depot for over 20 years, ever since they had their second location. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Austin.
Let's dive in. I would love to hear your story. You've obviously been doing this for 20 years, but what about before that? What is it? Did you grow up in the Dallas area? What kind of led you on this path to get involved in the DSO space?
Sure. My journey is pretty unique, and it really comes from my family and my parents. And so, in a real short, brief moment, my dad was born in Africa. My mom was born in India.
Wow.
My brother and I were born in London, England. And we immigrated to the United States in the early 80s. And at that time, it was really common for Indian entrepreneurs to move to America and get into the hotel business. So from the early 80s at a young age, I was really enthralled and embraced in the hotel business. And at that time, labor wasn't easy. And so it was easy to have your kids do labor. So my parents obviously had my brother and I do as much hotel labor as we could in a little mom and pop motel they owned in Western Oklahoma. So they built a little small hotel and motel in Western Oklahoma right off the highway in the early 80s, where I grew up and learned the trends of business and customer relationships and customer values early in my career, from renting rooms to trying to figure out how many rooms we could sell and what kind of revenue we could make if we sold every room out every night. And so that was in early stages. Went on
And
to
what
University of
city was this in?
It was in Eric, Oklahoma. So my hometown is a town of about 900 people. It's a hometown of Roger Miller for some old theatrical folks who might know who Roger Miller is.
Okay.
But yeah, 900 people. I had 24 people in my graduating class, and I think I was the only one in my graduating class to go on to a 4-year college at the time.
Really?
So
So
yeah,
how did you fill the rooms? Was it just like a destination town?
yeah. So it was really off the highway, and so when people got tired, they'd just pull in and
Oh,
park. It was before the internet. It was before hotels.com. It was before reservations, right? It was basically a drive by, and we did most of our check-ins probably after 8 p.m. till about 2 a.m. And
you
that's
worked,
how we
did you
did
work
it.
the night shifts?
I've worked many a night shifts. Yeah.
And did you have to wake up for school the next day still?
Woke up for school. So this,
Oh
I didn't
man.
do it more on the weekdays, but I did it on the
Yeah.
weekend. Parents could sleep.
How successful was the business?
It was tough. So in the
Yeah.
early 80s, when we built that hotel, that we built it in the hopes that the oil boom was going to continue. So I
Mm,
got to feel my first recession as a probably 10, 11-year old and understanding what a recession was at 8 or 10.
well,
And when we went through the oil boom, and we built this little motel, about 32 rooms, and we couldn't fill a room. We were just gasping for anybody to occupy a room. And those were the days where we were renting rooms at $19, $20 a night. Okay.
wow.
So you can imagine all the lessons to be learned at a very early age with real estate and operations and really a recession and tough times and labor shortages in a town of 900. We're kind of dealing with labor
Yeah.
shortages now. We couldn't find a housekeeper in Eric, right? So we were our own housekeeper, our own front office people, our own managers. We were on our repair people. I learned how at a very early age repair televisions and air conditioners and hot water heaters.
It sounds like it got you thinking about the importance of a strategic site selection.
A lot of, yes, I wouldn't select that site again if I had to in Western Oklahoma. But you know what? It taught my brother and I a ton of lessons, and
Yeah.
we phenomenally successful by having two amazing parents who really poured into us. Neither of my parents got a chance to finish middle school education. So when we
Well,
moved to America, their primary goals was that my brother and I go get educated. He's now a successful lawyer in Dallas, and I went on to become a dentist. Whether I'm successful or not, to be questioned.
you seem to be doing just fine. And then put a pin in that sort or to close out that chapter. Is it still up and running? Did they sell it? What happened?
Yeah, so my parents, we retired them when Rakesh and I got really comfortable in our careers. We decided that the hotel industry was changing, the advent of the internet and technology and computers and all the stuff that my parents were not very well versed at. We asked them in around the early 2000s, and about 25 years into their career, we asked them to actually sell everything, and we actually divested them out, and then they're retired. They've been retired since their late
Mm.
50s.
So it had a happy ending after all.
It did.
Okay. And
Western
then,
Oklahoma is great from what I hear.
oh, good. Okay. And so then after that, you went on to, you said you're going to college?
I think I lost you there for
Oh,
a second.
yeah, sorry. So after that, you said you're going on to college?
Yeah, so I went out of college at University of Oklahoma and then spent 4 years there getting my undergrad degree, and then went on to dental school right there at the Health Sciences Center in downtown Oklahoma City. And that's how I got through my educational part of my, and I graduated right in the millennial graduation of 2000, year of 2000.
Okay, very cool. All right. So then what was your first job out of that? When you graduated from dental school, did you know that you wanted to have your own practice? Do you want to be an associate? What was your thinking like at the time?
I think as you grow up in anything, everyone's dream is to own their own practice. I think everyone goes to dental school with the hopes that we'd all own our own practices one day. I was no different. I graduated from dental school, but I also realized I didn't want to be in a really small setting. And I actually went to a group that is now owned by a very large national group. And this was probably DSOs before DSOs was even around. And it was a doctor in Oklahoma City who had a handful of offices and built 6 or 8 or 10 of them in Oklahoma City and had done very well with it. And so I took a job there. My brother went on to law school in Denver, and I really wanted to leave Oklahoma. So after a year stint with this group, I ended up going to Colorado, where I practiced, only to have 9/11 happen just literally as I was moving out there. So it was a tough
Well,
couple of years with that and the recession. So they're led into my kind of second recession, if you will, of dealing it in my adult career or career here. And so practiced out in Colorado a couple of years, built an office, 2 offices out there, and then moved back to Oklahoma. And when I moved back to Oklahoma, Dr. Ashmore and Dental Depot had recruited me out of dental school. I opted not to take the position. I was back in town and I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I'm back. If you guys are looking for a dentist, I'd love to come back and give you guys, hopefully you guys will take me in." And I was just 29 years old. And Glenn and team said, "Hey, we'd love to have you back at the South office where we recruited you back in 2 years ago." And off I came and I joined the group right around 2002, 2003.
wow. Okay. So what was it like at the time? How has it evolved since then? I know that's a loaded question, but that was location number two, right?
Location number two. Yeah.
Okay. So
So
at that stage, did you know you were going to continue to grow and scale and have all these locations, or did it happen organically?
it was really an interesting scenario. It really happened organically. 2 or 3 years to knowing that my background was in real estate and my parents had built and then managed, grew to several hotels in their career. But I was enthralled in the real estate and the building and all of that. Of course, obviously, the tax consequences were always nice. My dad always used to teach me as a kid about depreciations and things as a kid. And so around 2004 or five, before we'd even opened more offices, we had a couple of partners now looking to join and keep building more dental depots. We all went to Glenn and said, "Hey, I'd like to be partners in this thing." And we really don't know what that means. And I'm not sure that Glenn really knew what that meant back in the early 2000s. He says, "Great, you can be a partner. And my kids are going to be dentists. Pick another region." I said, "It's funny. I want to be in Dallas anyway. And so would you mind me having a dental depot in Dallas?" This is around 2005. And so, yeah, we'll partner up and build the location and opened in 2007. That was my first location in Dallas. And so we really didn't know back then. And DSOs really didn't exist. And we had the Heartlands doing some of the things they were doing, but it wasn't really well known. The ADSOs done a wonderful job of really encompassing, and the DEOs done some nice stuff about really encompassing group practices and really putting us on the map a little bit. But even then, we really weren't really looking to be a DSO. And it wasn't until recent years that we decided to formulate a proper DSO. And a lot of that was just organic growth. And as what our perfect scenario was, is our doctors came and became very successful junior associates. And when they really understood our pattern, how we did dentistry and how we cared our patient care model, it was better just to turn them into partners. And so ultimately, these doctors slowly, as we wanted to expand and grow, we just came to them and say, "Hey, we're looking to grow, and would you guys like to join us and become partners and open your own location?" And off we went. And it started a storm of doctor-owned offices that were groomed internally. And so our doctors that are with us, that are junior associates, are getting groomed to become partners in our next locations. And it just self-feeds the situation. And at this point, we could probably grow them as fast as we can find quality partner doctors.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's the bottleneck now is the labor shortages.
Yeah, that's the challenge today. I think it's in any industry. I've got good folks in all the industries, whether it's banking or restaurants or whether it's retail or whether it's dentistry. Post-COVID, there's just been a real hard crunch, and not just the labor market, but also just the quality of labor market. And so we've also seen a massive increase in wages. And so we're all trying to find that balance between increased wages, holding on to team members, finding quality, making sure the service of our patient care is at the highest level. But it's really made us to shift our model to really, we spend a lot of time investing it back into our teams. And that's where we found our real success, is that instead of investing on other stuff, we just keep investing back into our teams.
Hmm.
And that allowed us to continue our growth model and year over year.
Oh, and so on that note, have you guys looked at increasing automation where you can, just given if there's work to be done and nobody to do it, something's got to give. So like you got to automate something. So have you guys been exploring that?
We have our partners in Oklahoma City and us down here in Dallas. We're using technology and we're using AI and several facets internally of where we can do things at a much larger scale, everything from RCM to phone automation, centralizing services, and whether it's insourcing, outsourcing. We're getting as creative as we potentially can, knowing that there are things that we can control. To me, in the perfect world, a phone would never ring in a dental office because we could help control some of that centrally, but the teams would then be really focused on the care of the guests that walk into our building. And so I think there's going to come a day where we are able to have a lot less phone calls in our building and have more concentration on the actual patient that's physically in the building, because the warmest patient that we can do dentistry on is the one that's already in the building. And so
Mhm.
just pivoting a model to continue to drive better patient care, better outcomes, better service models. In order to do that, we have to be able to consolidate those services so that maybe those team members aren't having to do the things that what we've done in the last 30 or 40 years. And dentistry really hasn't changed a lot when it comes to the operations of dentistry in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? You answer phone, you book a patient. We have to start really innovating how patients communicate with us, online scheduling and all the things that patients don't want to pick up the phone anymore. And we as consumers don't want to pick up the phone, right? If I can chat with somebody, I would rather chat with somebody than pick up a phone and wait on a, it's what has happened in our industry, or actually it's what's happened in our culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I dread it as well, right? Like you can't blame them because when I get a call, what is it? More, no, more often than not, it's spam or it's somebody trying to sell you something. And then when you call out, what happens? You get put on hold and you got to wait through
Yeah,
all these things. And
right.
it might not be the case at your office, but we don't know that. The consumer doesn't know that. And so, yeah, it's like one of those things you want to, I don't know, skate to where the puck is going is the correct term because it seems like the puck's already there.
Right. As Wayne Gretzky says, you go before the puck gets there, right? You
Yeah.
always before the puck got there. I think all of us in our industry are trying to innovate and stay ahead. We got some enormous leaders in our industry that are doing some great things, and we pay careful attention to them. They're really changing
Mhm.
what we can do. In dentistry, we're not really in competition with each other. There's plenty of dentistry to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Emmett Scott says you're in competition and the couch, and it's just really the lack of going more so than it having too many people. If everybody could just would go and get the service that they need, the care that they need on their mouths, then that would solve a lot of the problems.
We wouldn't know what to do with ourselves, right? We wouldn't have enough dentists in this country. Just our
So
motive should be to get patients into the chair, right? Get them to the door. That's what we need to do. That's the drive this country should have.
you guys have a very strong theme, calling it the Dental Depot destination, right? I would love to hear the story about how you guys decided to theme it, and if you could just walk us through what a store looks like.
Dr. Glenn Ashmore, who still practices dentistry today, is a native Oklahoma Cityan, and he graduated from Oklahoma City High School up there and went down to SMU, got his bachelor's degree, and then did a stint in the Navy, and then went into the dental school at Baylor. And then after he graduated, he met his wife, Arlene, who was a hygienist at the time with him. And they moved back to Oklahoma City and decided to put themselves right close to where he grew up his whole life, and started a small dental office in a small house in central Oklahoma City, probably not more than 1,000 square feet. Built some dental chairs into it, had some train memorabilia. Him and his wife were really passionate about train memorabilia, brought it in, recrafted the practice as Dental Depot, and Dental Depot was born. And so over the years, Glenn and Arlene and their family would travel around the country collecting train memorabilia and artifacts, and just they were just train enthusiasts. And so ultimately, when we decided, Glenn said was losing a lot of doctors he was training a ton of doctors that would leave to go to open their own thing. So he finally in 2001 said, hey, let's just build my own office and we'll have one of my own doctors grow it, as opposed to keep losing doctors. At 20, 30 years into his career, he built his second office. Well, we all noticed it just took off. And so it was a real estate. We built this beautiful turn of the century Santa Fe themed train station in South Oklahoma City. And it just took off. And so we realized that there's a really interesting correlation between real estate and operations. Obviously, very expensive model, but that allowed us to be at the corner of Main and Main. And there's no secret; his location
Yeah.
all driven. That's any secret that we have. But we
Well,
have some.
every industry wants it.
Every industry has it. We have some science behind how we look at our locations, so that we've had 40 locations and we've hit home runs pretty much in all 40 locations. And so we have different things that we will look at in our locations. But that's how we got started. And ultimately, it became a very big business. We now have a team of people that that do nothing but year-round curate and collect trained memorabilia. That is their full-time positions. If you go to Oklahoma City State Fair, you'll see a Dental Depot booth. If you go to any parts of anything in Oklahoma City, that you'll see a lot of trained different stuff that Glenn's given back to the community. And now we've come into Dallas, we're doing the same thing, and then Phoenix, and then Kansas City, and some of the other markets that we represent, Tulsa. Those are the 5 markets that we currently are in, and we're looking to expand. Good doctors want to come in and take our model to a different region, and we're excited to grow with them.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Like myself being in having short-term rentals and cleaning them out, it's really makes all the difference. Like it's a really cool feature. It's definitely marketing, right? Like I'm sure having that Santa Fe themed dental office in the corner of Main and Main probably served as a big component of your marketing budget, right?
No, and it does, and that's why we can actually offset some of our marketing budget into our real estate budget, right? And it's a one way or the other, right? You can spend it over time in marketing budget, but we've found that
Yep.
it works in real estate, and it works well. We still have a nice marketing budget that we still outlay because it's needed, but being at a very point of use location where it's very visible on a main street is also helps as well.
Yeah. We talked about rent being a factor of your marketing because you're gonna have to pay it one way or another, like you said. And so if you sign the lease up front, okay, you're gonna have a 2% bump or whatever, 3%. But how much are your digital ads gonna increase, right? Because those are bidding platforms. And so like Facebook and Google and all those places, you're just gonna go up and up.
And back when we started this model, that wasn't an issue, right? Google wasn't the elephant in the room. That they have become the elephant in the room over the last 10 or 15 years. And we're all having to play in the same sandbox for it, right? And Google's not going to let out their secrets, but there has been a pivot in real estate to digital marketing and digital real estate. I think there's a real need for digital real estate today as much as there is physical real estate. I'm a big proponent of both. And so I think before we could get away with them without so much of that advertising, but I think that has pivoted in the last couple of, especially COVID, post-COVID, that's pivoted.
Yeah. Yeah, the path to 40 locations had to be crazy. Let's talk about your de novo strategies. I mean, what's the first step? Is it identifying the location? You said you run your own analytics. I know you guys like to buy the real estate too. Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, we really look at locations based around some good operating partners, right? So we're going to go identify good locations when we have good identifiable partners. And we've got a lot of doctors in our group that are now strategically moving into that partnership role with us. So when they get ready to be partners and they can actually invest into the real estate and the practice with us, what we'll do is we'll go out and look for locations with them. And we'll do all the kind of setups and do on the back end. And then our teams will go in there and actually do the construction, then civil engineering, the architectural, all of it internal. And then we'll go hire and bid and get those things built. And then our design team comes in and turns into a dental depot within 48 hours. So when we have architects and designers all get involved and they all look at the drawings where the trains are going to come through each of the ceilings and each of the operatories, all that's designed out so that when we get ready to give turnkey to our design team, they're going to come in, a truck comes in, a team comes in, and within 48 hours, it is ready to be opened as a beautiful dental depot.
Wow. So when you're doing the site selection process, are you looking for second generation spaces? Are you looking for empty pads, or you do ground up development? Is there a preference there?
So primarily for most of our career, we have used pad sites and done it. We've done a little bit of development. I think Dr. Glenn has done some development. I've done some development down here in Oklahoma City, down here in Dallas. We're not development's not our thing, but we would get into it if we had the right piece that we could piece together, and we've done it in a couple of our locations. But we'll buy pad sites and typically architecturally design and build it. In the last couple of years, because buildings have become available, we've gone to second gen buildings and retrofit them as well. And so it really depends if it fits our need, it fits our locations, and we'll once we get into an area we want to be in, we're going to scour everything in that area to see what would be a best fit for us, right? And then put our tools, our measuring scales, our secret sauce, if you will, of what we think will make us successful. That will overlay all that to determine then a good site selection for us.
So is it necessary? Is it a requirement that you be able to purchase real estate, or have you ever done lease deals?
So we're 100% real estate owned. So we currently do not have any lease buildings in our portfolio. We own and lease back to ourselves, if you will.
Yeah.
But we don't have any tenant-based dental operations currently. Now, market's shifting, and we are seeing some different things in our market. And internally, we've had some nice discussions of possibly pivoting into retail locations, but we haven't made that leap quite yet. It's not something that we have done well yet, but we have definitely had some interest in because we're getting a lot of people who would like to join us or have their practices join us. And now we're trying to sort out how we would want to go navigate through that.
Mm. Yeah, and so in terms of joining, I know that you also got allow the primary associates to purchase the real estate too. So can you walk through what that looks like for the
Yeah,
partners?
so we can have an opco propco, and so we have an opco company that'll have be the operational side, which is our DSO, and we'll have a propco, which is a property side. So our doctors can actually take an invested interest in our real estate, so they can actually buy into the propco and have a dividend come up for the real estate side, along with having the operations side, and then have a vested interest in the DSO as well. And so it allows them to be an entrepreneur at both levels. And it really has been a great formula for us because our doctors then get to be really true entrepreneurs, both at a real estate level and an operational practice level. And our partner doctors are really helping driving their practices, right? So not are we just providing all the support for them, but we're also giving all their mentorship of how to really drive and run successful businesses.
Yeah, I love it. It creates a lot of stickiness, as they like to say.
A lot of stickiness.
So we were talking earlier off camera just about market trends, and it's just been crazy. I've been having a lot of conversations about how hard it is right now, but also if we think back to the past, we view the past with rose-colored lenses, right? Because it's, oh man, I wish it was like 21 when everything was going up. Well, in 21, everybody's saying, oh my gosh, prices of assets are crazy. I wish it was like 20 when everything was flat and interest rates were low. And then in 2020, we're like, oh my gosh, we just had the COVID pandemic. I wish it was like 2019.
Yeah, yeah. The crystal
And
ball
so it's
theory,
just like,
right?
yeah, there's no normal, right? That's one of the
No,
things that
no.
I've learned over the past couple of years. There's no normal, but you can definitely be strategic. So, like, how are you guys trying to be strategic right now?
Strategy is funny, right? It's just one of those things that do we have a crystal ball? Is it really strategy or is it some of it's just luck? And heck, we just got to figure it just in time. And you get to hear people, and you know, no one really has a crystal ball to look for it. I've been at several financial analysts and talk here in the recent 3 or 4 months because that's been a really interesting thing about just not just global, not but local economies, but global economies too, right? We're understanding that Germany may be the first European country to start slipping into a recession, so we're really
Oh,
paying careful attention abroad, but because this is going to have an impact in the U.S. And I think as far as strategy, what we're trying to do is it's just an interesting environment that we're in. Historically, when one is up, something is down, right? We've not normally seen high interest rates and low unemployment rates, or we've not seen high construction rates and high interest rates or high construction cost interest rate. What's interesting is that there's this interesting curve. The first time in our history, we're starting to see it in the scales and trends that they're all peaking out at the top at the same time, which is super high, super low unemployment. We've got high interest rates and high construction costs, and the labor market's tight. And so we've not really seen that a whole lot in our history so much. And so this is why I think we're going to have to lean on technology and navigate things a little differently. We're going to have to come out of this with different solutions than we've had in the past, right? I always say every year I tell my team, in order to have a better 2024, we have to reinvent ourselves. We can no longer do what we did in 23 because that's non-existent anymore. So what are we going to do in 24 that's going to create something new that makes us different? And every year I ask the same questions as we get to this time of the year is what are we going to do different next year that's going to make us better than we are this year? Because we had a
I
great
like that.
year, but we can't do the same thing next year and expect a better outcome. We're going to have to pivot. So I think some of the strategies, just internal, really understanding your business model, whatever your business model is, really understanding, sitting back and taking a look. Sometimes we get so ingrained in running the day to day that we don't step back and look at it at a 100,000-foot view. And when you do, you'll really be able to take a look at different components of your business. Just tweaking one thing may ratchet 3 to 5% revenue, right? And we'll look at different things to have 1 to 2 to 3% revenue increases in different areas. And if we do, when the dust settles, we could have a 10-15% growth in our year. And that's what Jack, our CEO, co-CEO, looks at every year up in Oklahoma City. Glenn does. We teach our doctors to do this. It's been ingrained in us. Glenn's been a phenomenal mentor and a very fiscally responsible person. In my 20 some years with him, he's just very dialed down and very fiscally responsible. So I think it's just going back to just economics 101 and basics.
Hmm. Yeah. So, moving forward, how are you guys adapting? Are you making any pivots that you talked about so far?
We're going to stick to the model. Glenn and Jack feel the model will continue to grow with us. We feel down here in Dallas, we'll probably look at some different markets within it. We may go to secondary markets versus the primary main Dallas market. We've had some good lucks not being in the major city, but being a secondary market. There's still a lot of patient needs, right? And so being in the challenge you have is most young doctors will be in the heart of Frisco, Texas, or heart of uptown Dallas, and that's probably not the best place to practice dentistry. And we're looking at things I think that'll give us a lot more growth and better outcomes. As far as pivoting our model, like I said, we may look at some acquisitions, and we've had groups have some interest in joining us in some in the future. I feel that could be something in the coming years that we'll start pivoting into. I think there's some great opportunity for us and synergies for us and other groups to get involved and to grow our model, and or put some of our stuff into theirs and their stuff into ours. I think the future is really bright. I know that we're looking at this micro recession, and I heard some stat not very long ago that a decent small percentage of DSOs may go into receivership in the next 12 to 18 months. And it depends on if you were over levered. We're a very under levered company. We don't go out and do stupid debt, and we don't go out and do crazy things. And we just stick to the formula Glenn taught us 20 years ago, and we're very under levered, and we're in a good position. I really feel, as I've told my team here in Dallas, I'm just excited to get to 24. We may hit a micro recession, but we're going to plow right through it.
And so growth in terms of number of locations, that's been like steady, consistent on the up and up.
Yeah, we've pretty much had a pretty sizable CAGR in double digits for probably 20 straight years now.
Wow.
And that's really unheard of in any industry, less the dental industry. So,
could you break that down for listeners?
Yeah, when you say CAGR, your compound annual growth rate, right? So basically, we've had 18-20% annual growth rate for 20 probably plus years straight now. I don't think we've missed it in 20 years. And I think that goes to say something about what Glenn has started, what the group is doing, attracting quality doctors and team members. I think it just goes into saying that this is a formula, and that, mind you, we've done that now in terms through 3 recessions, 2 to 3 recessions, right? And what was interesting, our recession years were happened to be some of our best years. And so if the recession's in front of us, we just tend to grow because we have stayed right down the middle of this. We're not going to sway to one side of dentistry or way over on the cosmetic side of dentistry. We're going to be treating America for what America needs to be treated for. And with very skilled.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Do you think that there are any like commonly held beliefs in the industry in general that you disagree with?
The disbelief that I'm challenged with right now a little bit is that there's this stigmatism about being a DSO or being part of a DSO. And it's the one I think that needs to be changed. I think there's a lot of good that DSOs can do. A lot of that is that they provide a lot of back-end support, training, support, guidance, mentor, all the good things I think good DSOs are doing, right? And so you hear a lot of these young doctors and young clinicians coming out of school, we've been told not to go to a DSO. I want to combat that. I think when you find yourself in a good group setting that's got a good mentor leader, you will do well. And a doctor early in their career, or a hygienist early in their career, or RDA early in their career, if they can get into good groups like ours or some of the other good groups out there that really do things really well, they'll have some good careers. They may not be forever, but what they'll do is they'll really grow. So I think one of the stigmatisms I like to debunk is that DSOs are innately bad. They do a lot of, and because they can do it in scales, they can have better pay, they can have better benefits. And so this, I think, and this is me being the non-DSO person for most of my career, right? But now that we flip, we can realize that we have our teams get a lot of benefits a solo practice may not get.
No, I think that's so true. Yeah, there's definitely a negative stigma around group dentistry still. And it's just becoming in these camps of for or against, and they're getting like more and more territorial about it. But yeah, like with the talk of costs going up, it's almost like impossible to just go out there and do it on your own. So just because you join a DSO doesn't mean you're paying it all to the man. There's equity opportunities, right? Like you become co-owners of a larger group.
And there's so many great DSOs allowing doctors to become equity partners. And what our doctors have loved is that they can become innate partners running the clinical component. They don't have to worry about a claim not getting paid right, and they don't have to go wrestle down an insurance company because we're going to manage that in the back end, right? We're going to do some of your hiring and firing and all your HR stuff. I don't know a doctor that gets up and says, "Hey, today I want to spend my entire day fighting insurance." Give me 1 minute and let's do that. But this is what good group practices will do. And this is what Glenn and Jack have designed phenomenal in Oklahoma City. Our teams here down in Dallas and regionally. But we will do all the legwork so that you can come in and really focus on the love of that team and clinical for those 8 hours a day that we are open, and allow those doctors to be innately invested with their team and still have a decision-making capacity for that practice. And it's been a wonderful blend of ownership and what we call co-ownership of our practices that allow our doctors to really practice at the highest level, attain some of the highest incomes. I think our junior associates and associate partner doctors, I think Jack will be the first to tell you that we'll be hard pressed to find groups whose doctors make as much as ours do.
No, that's great. Well, as we come close to closing, is there anything that you want to talk about that we maybe didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I appreciate you taking the time to have Dental Depot and our organization as part of your podcast here. Like I said, we've been excited to be part of the Depot family for better half of 20 years. And Glenn still, who practices dentistry in his early 70s, is still grinding it and really putting time and passion into doctors. But we've been blessed. Anyone who wants to learn a little bit about us, contact us through. I'm sure Austin can put out some information on our
what's website or LinkedIn, or like what's the best way to get in touch?
You can contact us through LinkedIn. We got Dental Depot LinkedIn. I've got my own LinkedIn at Hamish Kana. You can go to our website, dentaldepot.net or dentaldepotdfw.com. We've got regional websites too. Yeah, feel free anyone can reach out to us. And even if they just want to understand a little bit of how we do some things, and we're a very open group. One of the things Glenn and Jack have been really good about is we're a very transparent organization. When a doctor perspective member wants to come talk to us, we're open books. We'll show them like what our doctors are doing. And we don't want to hide it. Our doctors are proud of it. They'll go out and they'll be our biggest resource of projecting to others how well our docs and they're happy. I get them. Happy doctors in place, we're okay.
I love that. Okay. Hey guys, real quick, if you're a multi-site healthcare group looking to grow, then we've got a program especially for you where we help you buy the real estate and select sites that outposition the competition. And so in closing, just want to thank Dr. Kana for coming on the show. And yeah, really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, guys. Bye.